Canadian teens, like their peers around the world, have been slipping in math skills in recent years. That's according to a new report by the Program for International Student Assessment. The program is run by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD. Despite the decline, Canada did well compared to other countries in the report, placing 9th in math, 6th in reading, and 7th in science. To hear more, we are joined by Vanessa Vaccaria. She is host of Math Therapy of the Math Therapy podcast, and she is a professional math tutor. She joins us from Toronto. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning. So what does the report say about math skills in this country to start off with, as you see it?
Well, I think you kind of summarized it pretty well. I think with the report, I'm always wary of test scores, so I don't even want to focus on that so much because there are so many reasons for test scores to drop. As you see, test scores have dropped everywhere. It's not just here. But as someone who's on the ground floor and who knows a lot of teachers and tutors, I can say that we do have a problem when it comes to math education in this country.
And so who's falling behind then?
You know, I think this is one of those situations. We saw it in the pandemic. It's just getting worse now. Now, I own a tutoring company in Toronto, and I'm saying this. Those who are falling behind are those who cannot afford, tutoring services, who are at public instead of private school. Not in every case, but if you can't afford extra support and you need it, you're in a bit of trouble because class sizes at public school are huge. There are so many fewer supports in the classroom. We used to have special ed supports in class. Teachers used to get prep time. None of that happens anymore. So really, I think we're seeing that gap between private and public and those who can afford it and those who can't. That gap is really widening.
So we're kind of getting to a two-tiered class of math students, so to speak, almost.
I really think so. I don't know if you know this, but in a lot of cases, there are all these institutions that have popped up. Okay, tutoring is a huge industry now. There are all these institutions that have popped up where you can pay money, like a lot of money, take your course, your calculus course or whatever it is, one-on-one, and you'll likely get a 90%. We call it buying credits. I hate to say it that way because not every institution does that. But a lot of, if you're taking a course one-on-one, you're going to get a higher mark, right? So the fact that people who can afford it are getting all these higher marks, it's really inflating grades. So over the past 2 years in Ontario, grades have been inflated by 8%. In some universities, at Queen's, there's a program where you need 97% to get into. So, grades are being shoved up, but math skills are actually going down at the same time. So people are going to university with, a 95% and getting there, and then professors are like, okay, but these kids don't actually have the math skills used to. Yeah, it's nuts.
So what are some of the reasons that Canadian students are doing less well in math compared to past years and scores from what you're seeing?
So one of the first things is what I just said, the idea that we are very focused on grades. You even know this. Every time the test scores come out, we're like, oh my God, the scores. We care so much about scores and these metrics instead of what kids are actually learning. So you'll see, right? You hear this all the time. You need these high grades to get to university. Often people are doing, getting those high grades by any means necessary instead of focusing on the learning. Number two, what were you doing in 2003 when these math scores were apparently so high? I was using a Discman. There was no social media. We barely had cell phones. Life was so different back then.
Right.
Kids, think about it. Adults who are listening, think about the way you raised your kids, right? Kids today are savvy. They're smart. They can use a computer. They can do all of this stuff. They know that they don't just need to get a 9-to-5 job and, do data entry to be successful. They were on TikTok last night and they saw someone make $1 million from inventing a string thing for their phone. So they know that the math they're learning in school has no value to them. Imagine I sat a kid down and I was like, nope, follow the rules and learn how to use this Discman. They'd be like, no. Number one, they're not raised to follow rules and just copy and do what we tell them to. That's what back to basics math is. It's sit down, memorize, copy. Do what I say, do it the way I do it. First of all, kids don't need those skills. Kids need to be able to think and solve problems in unique ways. And number two, they don't get bullied into learning the way we used to in 2003. So the content is useless and the way we're teaching them is archaic.
So then do math skills still matter then in this day and age from what you're telling us? Okay, tell us why then.
So they absolutely do, but let me tell you this, getting a 90 in math, unless I understand the conflict. If you want to go into a math or science career and get into a university, you need higher grades, and that is a struggle. But we need to focus less on pumping out these high grades and more on teaching kids to understand, truly understand the basic skills they need to live a good life, how to discern statistics, how to look at an Instagram post and say, those numbers are weird, I'm not going to buy that, how to manage their finances, how to feel confident. I know a ton of adults who grew up in that system in 2003, and while they know their times tables, they are not confident around math, and they lack problem-solving skills. So we need to really, really, really focus on understanding instead of pumping out these scores. Not every kid needs a 90, but every kid needs to truly understand basic math.
Okay, Vanessa, I've got about a minute left here, and I want to ask you, math skills are often linked to Canada's economic prospects, but in what ways can skills in math also elevate us at a personal level, do you think?
Well, I think that's a great question because I kind of talked a bit about the personal there, right? The confidence building, being able to, be financially independent. But let me talk about Canada's economic prospects for a second. If we just had a bunch of kids being taught to follow rules and memorize, do you think we do very well?
No.
Innovation and problem solving is actually the lifeblood of prosperity, productivity, innovation. So really, we need to be valuing what kids are bringing to the table. Again, remember, they're smart. They can use a computer better than we can. They know what's going on. So those are math skills. Those problem-solving and innovation skills are math skills. And for both their benefit as well as ours as a country, we need to reinforce and foster those.
Well, Vanessa, you'll be happy to hear as the father of an 11-year-old, I'm having to brush up on my math skills, looking at his grade 6 homework. So this has given me a lot to think about this morning. I appreciate your time here.
Yeah, get at it. You're better at math than you think, and just learn alongside with him.
That's why I'm in radio and a journalist, because we can't do math.
That's not true.
Thanks, Vanessa. You take care.
Okay, bye.
Vanessa Viccaria is a math tutor and host of the Math Therapy podcast, and she spoke with us from Toronto.
Thank you for watching the CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. For the latest breaking news and top stories, download the CBC News app.